Last winter, I decided to go camping alone. Just me and my dog Rosco. It was an experience I will absolutely never do again. I had a few days off work, and all I wanted was to get away from everything and everyone. I loaded up my truck with all my gear, and we headed out. I drove up this long, narrow trail that went deep into a state forest. The road was barely a road, mostly just packed snow and ice, and it was clear no one had been up there in a while. There were no other tire tracks, no signs of life. After about an hour of slow, careful driving, I found a small pull-off area. It looked like it hadn't seen a car in ages. Perfect, I thought. From there, I grabbed my pack, and Rosco and I hiked for another 20 minutes or so. We pushed through the snow until we found this beautiful little clearing, completely surrounded by thick, snow-covered trees. The snow was deep and totally untouched. It was exactly the kind of isolation I was looking for. I dropped my pack, started clearing a spot for my tent, and let Rosco run around. He didn't stray far, just joyfully sniffing at everything and bouncing through the deep powder. I got the tent pitched and staked it down as hard as I could into the frozen ground. Inside, I laid out my sleeping pad and my winter-rated sleeping bag. I knew it was going to be a seriously cold night, well below freezing, so I was dressed for it. I had on all my layers: thermal base, thick wool socks, a fleece mid-layer, and my heavy winter jacket. Once the tent was set, I gathered a bunch of deadwood and built a small fire pit. He got a nice steady fire going and cooked a simple meal over the flames. I sat on a log, eating my dinner, while Rosco curled up near the fire, soaking in the warmth. It was so quiet out there. It's that unique kind of winter silence, where the snow seems to absorb every sound. It's a peaceful, but also slightly eerie feeling. After I finished eating, Rosco suddenly jumped to his feet and started barking towards the woods. My first thought was it was probably just a deer. They're everywhere out there, and he's barked at them before. I told him to relax, and he actually listened, sitting back down beside me. I figured I'd enjoy the fire a little longer before calling it a night. I always carry a handgun when I'm camping this far out, and it was holstered at my side like usual. I felt completely safe. About 20 minutes later, Rosco started barking again, but this time it was louder, more insistent, and then I heard it too. Footsteps. Someone was walking through the snow, somewhere out in the darkness, beyond the firelight. I stood up, straining my ears. The steps would stop, then start again, getting closer. Roscoe's barks turned into a low, deep growl, and then he went completely silent. He just stood there, rigid, staring into the trees. That's when a knot of unease started to form in my stomach. I followed his gaze, and I saw it. A shape standing at the edge of the tree line. A person half hidden by the shadows, just outside the circle of my fire's light. I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, more for my own sake than anything. The figure didn't move. Then, it took a small step forward into the light. It was a man. He asked me what I was doing out here, so deep in the woods. His voice wasn't friendly. It was flat and cold. I told him I was just out enjoying nature with my dog. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there, watching me. The whole situation felt wrong. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me. I calmly told him I was armed. He let out this small, unnerving laugh. He said something about how I should be offering him some hospitality instead of making threats. Then, as quickly as he appeared, he turned and walked back into the darkness. I heard his footsteps fading away until there was only silence again. I stood there for what felt like forever, just staring into the blackness where he'd disappeared. Rosco stayed right by my side, steel on edge. I hated it. I hated the feeling, the uncertainty. But eventually, I convinced myself he was gone for good. I carefully put out the fire, dumping snow on it and stirring the ashes until I was certain not a single ember was left. I crawled into my tent and did everything I could to get warm. I was fully dressed, knit hat pulled down, sleeping bag cinched tight around my shoulders. I even cracked a few hand warmers and put them near my core and feet. Rosco curled up right next to me, and honestly, his body heat was the most comforting thing in that moment. I lay there, listening, for what felt like hours. Just as I was starting to relax, Rosco started growling again, a low, guttural sound from deep in his chest. And then I heard it, the reason for his growling. Footsteps in the snow, they were about. This time, they were slower, more deliberate. and they were coming right up to my tent. They stopped just outside the thin nylon wall. Rosco started howling, a loud, panicked sound. I whispered at him to be quiet, terrified that the noise would give us away, even though it was obviously too late for that. He stopped howling but kept growling. Whoever it was just stood there, right outside my tent. I could practically feel their presence. My gun was in my hand, the cold metal a stark contrast to my sweaty palm. I didn't want to use it. I've never pointed a gun at another person, and I didn't want to start now. But the silence, the waiting, it was unbearable. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I cocked the hammer on the gun. The click was loud in the dead quiet of the tent. I spoke, my voice much clearer and firmer than I felt. I said, "Whoever is out there needs to leave. Now." There was a long pause, a few seconds that stretched into an eternity. Then I heard the footsteps again, moving away. They were slow at first, then they got faster, and soon they were gone, swallowed by the forest. I didn't dare unzip the tent to look. I just stayed there, frozen, 4 hours. Rosco stayed on high alert, and he was the only reason I eventually felt safe enough to drift off for a few minutes at a time. I barely slept that night, just short, fitful bursts of restless sleep. The second the sky began to lighten, I was up. I packed up my camp faster than I ever have in my life. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of the wind made my heart jump. We hiked back to the truck, practically running the whole way. I threw the gear in the back, got Rosco in the cab, and we drove away as fast as that icy road would allow. I never looked back. I've never returned to that part of the woods, and I never will. That night taught me a valuable lesson. No matter how prepared you think you are, you can never truly let your guard down. There are people out there who can turn a peaceful escape into a living nightmare. Thanks for listening, and please, stay safe out there.